All right, everyone, this is an important story, unlike the concept of Joe Biden's uncle being eaten by cannibals in Papua New Guinea back in World War II. Again, it's time for your morning humor, I suppose, but this one a little bit less so. But it is a good story because it turns out that the Supreme Court is looking into the J6ers, right, and some of the trials against them, as well as Donald Trump. And they're openly questioning now whether there was not overreach and overstretching with regards to obstruction charges that were leveled against Trump and against people there. Now, in Trump's case, quite clearly, he did not obstruct justice. He was not there at J6 beyond making a speech. He then left, other people popped off. He didn't encourage it. He did nothing wrong. He did nothing illegal. That's why he's not facing any actual insurrection charges like the left wanted. By the way, I've noticed that they quieted down a lot on that issue recently. Seems like they abandoned it. Around the time people said, if he did commit sedition or something, wouldn't he be on trial for that, since they've literally got him on trial for pretty much every other felony known to man at the moment? Yeah, probably. That would be a slam dunk if you were actually guilty, and you could keep him out of office, too. But they can't do that because there was never any charge, and all of their court cases have fallen through at this point. Remember Colorado, Maine, and others. In the end, none of that stuck. Liberals were briefly angry. They were very salty. Now they don't like to talk about it because they fucking lost, because Donald Trump did nothing wrong that day. As far as the J6ers in general, how can you say that a person should face obstruction charges simply by being in proximity to a riot? I mean, your failure to disperse, of course, you're supposed to disperse when told to do so. I would point out that a significant plethora of the people that entered the Capitol on that day would not have been aware of the fact that there was a dispersal order, because they came in after the Capitol was already breached. The police then basically gave them a guided tour for the most part. Now, keep in mind, and this is something some conservative commentators won't be honest enough to admit this, but as a non-conservative commentator, I'm going to point it out. If you're outnumbered 100 to 1, you probably want to try to de-escalate, and that's the reason why the cops that day, after the building began to be breached, generally just waved them in, because they wanted to prevent further violence. And there was violence. The cops were being attacked outside. Protesters were being attacked. Tear gas was deployed. Barricades were ripped apart and things like that. It was a riot at that point. It was no longer a lawful protest. But the majority of people that did participate that day did nothing. They wandered around for a while and took selfies. Like the old lady there, that basically she took a selfie for Instagram. I think she got 4 months in prison for absolutely nothing. She didn't break anything. She didn't break a window. She didn't steal any artwork. In fact, I don't think anyone touched the artwork that day. There was a very limited amount of actual physical damage to the U.S. Capitol other than the fucking doors. And the only people that explicitly were killed that day were 2 protesters. I can't remember the name of the second one, but Ashley Babbitt, everyone remembers her name. I want Joe Biden to say it a couple times. She was shot while unarmed, while attempting to climb through a window, effectively. It seems to get away from other people that were becoming rowdy in order to try to protect herself. And then the Capitol Police shot her. And then, of course, the officer got a standing ovation in the halls of Congress for his heroism. Congratulations, you killed this 5-foot-tall chick who didn't even have a weapon at the time. It's the only unarmed victim shooting that the liberals won't riot for, by the way. If she had been black and this were a bunch of Democrats entering the Capitol to protest Donald Trump's re-election or something, which very well might have happened, and very well might in 2024, something similar, by the way, by leftoids, then they'd have like a holographic monument like George Floyd has. The Supreme Court, in the end, I think is likely to rule that there was overstretching. I think that they won't uphold the charges. Now the trials continue to go forward. They're simply musing this as those lower court decisions pan out. But they're preemptively sort of showing their hand when they say, well, yeah, we are questioning whether these particular charges are actually meaningful, whether they should be there at all. Well, then half the J6ers should be out of prison right now. There have been people who are in on spurious charges that won't even, in the end up with a guilty verdict, who have been rotting there for literally years now. You'll note, basically, it's a giant struggle session, too. What they're trying to do is to make fearful people who support Donald Trump. So basically, if you step out of line and do anything that you think you need to do to restore the republic, we're gonna punish you severely. We've got little old ladies there in the hole for extended periods of time under conditions which were literally investigated by the U.S. Marshals, forcing them to tell the authorities, hey, you have to move some of the people out of the prison you've got them in because the conditions are so appalling, they literally violate human rights. For the first few months, they were being held in conditions that probably would have been disallowed under the goddamn Geneva Convention. You've had people that have been in the hole in solitary for months and months at a time for absolutely no reason whatsoever. For minor infractions or probably for none. The whole idea is to punish them. They know that if all of these things go to trial, some of them won't even pan out. Basically what they want is for these people to confess and then say, Trump made me do it. That's the whole thing. It's a struggle session. It's like the Soviet Union. Intelligent people understand this. So I'm hoping that SCOTUS does weigh in and say, no, you can't keep those obstruction charges, so you got to let half of these people go, because that's literally the only charge that some of these people have faced. And then it takes months and months to get a trial. Meanwhile, they're indefinitely detained and often can't even post bond. So it's a big problem. By the way, Trump has indeed been paying the bulk of their legal bills. And some liberal commentators have claimed otherwise and said, well, Trump is such a skinflint, he won't even pay for the people that tried to overthrow the country for him. Well, yeah, they didn't try to do that, but he is actually paying for their lawyers' fees in large part. That's about all. Peace out.